Okay, so let's get started.
Hello.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us, our podcast, The Awakening Process. Pernilla, the creator of Awakening 101, a spiritual
Good.
website. How are you doing overseas?
I'm good. It's a little tough because I was in California and now I just got back, and so it's like 2 a.m. really my time. Even though, no, wait, it's 6 here, so it would be like 3 a.m. their
Yeah,
time. So I'm a little tired, but we can do this, my friend.
we can do this, my friend. But
We're
for people
good.
who are joining us for the first time, Pernilla is based in New Jersey, Princeton, and I'm based in Denmark. So already there's a time difference. Pernilla
Yeah.
is 6 o'clock in the morning. She just woke up. For me, I have half of my day and I hit my head today. So that's why I'm looking a little bit stupid.
Yeah. You look
Um,
fantastic in your big turban here.
yeah, I have an ice
Ice pack.
pack in here. So if I'm dropping down, so don't take me too serious today. But I mean,
Oh no, I
I'm
never
just
take you seriously.
I'm just
Never.
asking into Pernilla, so then you can listen to Pernilla and then do whatever you want to do with my question. But today
Yeah.
we're having actually one of the topics that we have talked about without, we have talked that we really wanted to have this topic, and now we're finally here.
Hmm.
And I think it's a big topic, and I even had to go into Wikipedia and see how they defined it, because I really think yeah, we're going to drop into that, and I also got the definition from the Oxford University dictionary.
Yeah.
The topic for today is grace,
Yeah.
and just the word grace sounds so sweet and fluffy, and I just want to nerd into it.
Nerd into. That's fantastic.
That's fantastic, right? Maybe I could just be in grace all the time. What is grace, Panina?
Oh God, I knew you were going to ask that.
Of
It's
course.
so hard to answer. And I
But
was
give me
thinking
some
about this.
examples, and
Yeah.
if
So
yeah,
I love that we're starting hard here.
of course.
So grace. Oh God, how do you explain grace? I mean, for me, I would say it's explained in different ways. So one is, I mean, the way I see it now, that it's like when we have moments, we can even call that awakening moments our grace,
Mhm.
you know, when we
I
feel,
love that. I love that. That's
yeah,
really, yeah.
it's like these little glimpses of that there's something operating in our lives that is larger than ourselves, like we're being guided by some other force. And it's moments in life where they are unexplainable in like to like the regular mind that something happened. And I was reading the blog that I wrote about this last night, and like I had two humongous moments of grace in my life. I mean, other ones too. But the first one, which was, clearly the day that I got sober, that the things that aligned on that day aligned in such a way that there's really no other way to explain how it worked out the way it worked out, which is that I got sober and haven't drank in the last 25 years. Um, and I didn't know it at the moment, but pretty soon after that first day of sobriety, I realized I knew I had a sort of a feeling that something had happened that I had no control over, and there was somebody sort of like, quote, watching over me, like sort of like the simplified way of explaining that, like there's a force, a God, a self that's operating in my life. And then the second moment of
Can
grace.
I just do, because now you said that there was something higher, or something bigger. Could you say that grace cannot be controlled?
No, definitely
Mm.
not. There's no control. It's not a human action, grace, right? It's something of a guiding force that comes from beyond the
Mm.
human mind.
Mm.
And I think even though, like, let's say you're not a person who believes in specifically God, or, like, you and I, we're not the regular type of religious Christian people, or, we have our own sort of version of spirituality. I mean, you're a Buddhist, so that's sort of, but it's still not sort of mainstream Christianity. But I think that even for the people that say that they might not believe in God, they might believe in the idea of grace,
Mm,
because
mm,
it's like, that sometimes there's a coincidences
mm,
or things that happen in life, like a random meeting with a person, or
mm,
things that work out, like, if I had come 5 minutes later, I would have been hit by a car,
mm,
stuff
mm,
like
mm,
that,
mm,
that 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 you see in hindsight, and you're like, oh, wow,
mm,
this is kind of cool, like this thing happened. But I think that, so moments in life like that one, sobriety, the first day getting sober, and
mm.
then many, many more. But that's one of the ones where I'm like, whoa, something happened. And then the fact that I met my teacher, Sally Kempton,
Is that the second
who,
one?
yeah, the second big
Mm,
one,
mm, mm,
because she had such a profound impact on my life, and she was a deeply spiritual, knowledgeable, sage like human being, that I can say, like, I met her in 2003, and my life was like going forward, and when I met her, everything changed.
mm,
Like, it was like a marker on the timeline of Pernilla's life. I met her, and then everything changed,
mm.
because I started meditating, and I started delving into, like, spirituality in a way that I had never done before. So meeting her, and it wasn't like just that one meeting. It was like the relationship that evolved, and the retreats, and all the teachings and everything that evolved in the last 20 years since then, is not something that you could possibly, because not a lot of people meet a person like her.
No.
She was an enlightened being.
Mm.
Um, and that is also a form of grace. But then there could be smaller forms of grace, like having children is grace, because it's a miracle every time.
But could you
So,
say because now you're taking two pretty important game changers in your life. No, but becoming sober is like extremely. I mean, it's one of the hardest thing from an addict or alcoholic to. Could you now? Could you say that the power of the energy who carries you through being sober that day is an energy of grace? Could you call it?
definitely.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Because I'm really thinking of how we can draw this down so it doesn't become oh, I didn't have any big turning points in my life, or who's someone who might
Yeah.
listen to it, but because having that first day of sober and then meeting Sally, who became such a huge part of your life. It's funny because you mentioned 2003, and that was the year where I got introduced to the Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism, so that was also a big game changer for me. But I think, how can we draw it down to grace in daily life? Like, is
Yeah.
there something I'm striving for, or is it something that comes when I let go, or when I accept? How would you
Well,
draw
I
it
mean,
down
like
here now?
everything else, I think that you definitely, things like this don't come from striving. Nothing comes from striving.
Mm,
I mean, I guess we could say that if you strive to become a better meditator, right? Let's say you like work hard on your meditation practice, then you'll start recognizing grace-filled moments in your life more easily. But you can't strive for spirituality in the way that strive, like trying,
mm,
because like the whole restrictive quality of something like striving it doesn't work. You have to do your practice and then let go. But I mean, you tell me, let's say in your daily life right now, when do you have moments? Do you have moments like real time where you go, oh, that's a moment of grace? Or is it like a week later when you're
No,
like,
I
wait,
would say it is in the present moment. I mean, I would say that, nature really gives me grace in the instant moment.
hmm
When I go swimming But I need to be aware of it. If I just do it by the autopilot and thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to do this next, and I'm going to do this, and start planning my day, when I'm not present. But when I really, when I'm in the present moment, even if I'm, and even if I'm in a very challenge period or life state, I can even find some grace in that moment as long as I'm being present. If I
Yeah.
start drifting away and thinking, that's when
You don't notice them.
yeah, I don't notice them, and I also actually discovered that I easily get into the victim part,
Yeah.
feeling, oh, why me, or instead of, and I thought of it also when we talked the other day that, it's really my approach and my attitude to how to challenging all the challenging that's coming, and I know it sounds stupid, but I think that's what we're
No,
training, and the
that's
more we can
perfect.
recognize grace. But for me, it's the word grace has really been working through my life in different forms and shapes, and my understanding today is completely different. But I think
Yeah.
both you and me had this. What I really like when I came into the program, someone, and I think we mentioned that before, but someone said, well, if I don't believe in God, how can I relate? And especially, to the serenity prayer where you start with, God, please grant me the serenity. They said, well, why don't you use the word God like good, orderly direction?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when we do think, and that's when I come now to my definition of grace when I went into the Oxford Dictionary, but they call it a quality of behavior that is polite and pleasant and deserves respect. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because as long as I actually do things that are good for me and my surrounding, well, then I will cultivate the energy of grace, right?
Yeah. But I mean, I guess that's when you say a person can be graceful. So you said, I looked up Sally wrote a book called Meditation for the Love of It,
Yeah.
which is an incredible book. And I've
Is that
been
the pink
reading,
one? The pink one? Yeah, I have that one. Yeah.
yeah. But this is a meditation classic that everybody, it's called, yeah, Meditation for the Love of It. Here it goes.
Mm.
But it's a, like, if you're a meditator, this is like a Bible. You have to read this. And of course, I read it over and over and over again. But okay, so she talks a lot about grace, and I think that my definition of grace is of course like sprung from what she said. It's like the same sort of feeling because I come from her teachings. So she says, grace is the energy that connects us to the ultimate truth,
Mm.
to the source of our being, to what a friend of mine likes to call the God field.
Mm.
The India there, and then she says, the masters of Kashmir Shaivism and an Indian tradition that sees all of life as an expression of divine energy, they point out that grace is an ever-present force in the universe, more pervasive than gravity.
Wow. Let's tap into the last part. That's really. Read that again. The last sentence.
Yeah, it says here, the masters of Kashmir Shaivism, an Indian tradition that sees all of life as an expression of divine energy,
Mm.
point out that grace is an ever-present force in the universe, more pervasive than gravity.
I think that's amazing. I think
Yeah,
that's. Let's nerd about that. Let's
that's
define that. No, but when
yeah.
I can, just by you reading that, I can feel like my heart becomes like a red pink cushion with just it's like cotton on my soul.
Now you're nerding out.
I'm nerding out, and now we're out to that again. Now you're back. Yeah, but if we can be in that grace, how wonderful would that be?
Yeah, but you know what? We can't force ourselves to be in it.
No.
And I think it's the
Yeah, but
same
can we
thing as
work to be in it?
oh yeah, I mean it's the same thing as all of the practices that we've been talking about. Surrender, presence, awareness. I mean, the tools like prayer, meditation,
Mm.
being with nature, all the things that we talk about are the things that will lead to a state of grace, or actually lead us to recognize
Mm.
the state of grace more. So, I mean, I was reading the blog yesterday that I wrote, and it was interesting because, like, the word grace, I hated the word grace
Mm.
when I got to AA 25 years ago, because we grew up in Sweden, like we talk about, and that was a kind of a word you heard in church, and no one really uses it in regular daily life. Like, it doesn't come up, because no one really believes in that stuff, right? Are
Yeah.
you okay there?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm freezing a little bit. So I'm hearing what you're saying.
Because you have
Sorry.
ice on your head, that's why.
Okay. Wait. Hold on. 2 seconds. 2 seconds. 2 seconds. But don't don't laugh at me like that. Don't make fun of me. No, I'm back.
Okay, there you go.
I'm back. So
Uh,
sorry.
yeah, so do you remember anybody using the word grace in regular talk when you were
But how would you
growing
define
up?
grace in Swedish? What is the word for grace in Swedish?
I think it's nåd. No, wait. I think
Yeah, I think you're right.
they talk about it in church in Sweden,
Yeah,
but they,
yeah, yeah.
it's not something that you use in.
But that's like asking for God's grace. That's like someone, like, oh, you deserve it because you're being like this. That's how I think that they used it in church. Where,
Yeah,
where I,
nåd.
yeah,
Guds nåd. Yeah.
exactly. I don't like that either. I don't like that either. It's no, but I remember now. My parents took me to Sunday. I went to Sunday school
Yeah,
like
you
every
yeah, you
Sunday.
told me.
Horrible, but I mean, not horrible, but that was their time. I did enjoy it. But back to what they said. They said, "Oh, you're asking for God's grace, but who is God giving?" That's how he became the man up there who was like, "Oh, now little Louise,
Yeah,
you're
we
being a
couldn't
good
connect
girl."
to.
Not at
Yeah.
all.
But that's sort of how our version of religion was. Like, it was
Mm,
something that if you were a good girl, quote,
mm.
then you would get God's grace. And it's not you cannot, it's hard to understand what grace is when you have no connection to who God is,
But for
right?
example, if you have Anna and Alice, your children, coming and saying, "Mom, can you explain grace for me?" What would you say?
I probably would say something like, because I explain God, or my version of it.
How would that be? I want to hear.
I would say that it's an energy, and
Mm,
they say, well, what does that mean? I can't touch it. And I say,
mm.
love is an energy, and you can't touch it, but you know that it's there.
But you can feel it.
Yeah,
Mm,
you can feel it. So I would probably try to come up with something like, grace is those moments when you know that something else is operating in your life that's bigger than yourself, that you don't have control over, like
But when you say
coincidences.
that, then when you say that, I was like, okay, I mean, just please operate for me. I just want to sit back in my rocking chair, just rock it for me. I mean, I would be so grateful. I mean, just as a, that. But you know what I mean? That's how I.
Yeah, but it's almost like,
It must be a
you
responsibility or
know,
an action into it.
yeah, but that, and now we're nerding out, because I of course, I'm not I'm not an expert, here we're just trying to figure this out. But that if you are moving around in life
Mm,
in a way where you feel like you are in sync with the
mm,
flow of
mm,
life,
mm,
you're not rushing, you're not stressing, you're more present, you're not arguing with people all the time. Like, things are moving forward in a sort of balanced, peaceful way. I think that moments of grace become more, um, they don't come more easily, but you can at least recognize them more
mm,
easily. And when we're out of sync, so when I was living in New York and doing drugs every day, every night, and waking up and watching TV all day, and eating, like shitty food, whatever. Grace is not really something that plays into that lifestyle.
No.
And now maybe, and I mean, again, I write about this too. It's like, I think for my entire life, I would never know when moments of grace occurred in real time. I wouldn't be like, oh, there's grace. Yay. It's more like
Mm.
a year later, I'm like, oh shit, that thing that happened was really something bigger than me. But it's hard for me to know it right away. I think it takes a while.
Still, but when you're out in nature, for example, or when you're sitting on one of your horses and you go horseback riding, or when you're out sailing in the archipelago in Sweden.
Yeah.
No, but wouldn't you
But
say that in that present moment you can feel grace?
yeah, but I don't know if that's what I think of grace as being.
But how could
So, so I more would say that then I feel like a connection to the universal energy and presence. But maybe that's the same thing. I don't know.
that's what I'm saying, because but can you cultivate grace?
Yeah.
Can you kind of like, okay, I stand up in the morning, I do my meditation, I really, really want to cultivate, I really want to be in ease in my body and grace in my life. That would be pretty nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying is like if you're using meditation or doing spiritual practices, of course there's going to be moments that are flowing into your life that are more graceful because you're in sync with the flow of the universe. I mean, I know that sounds like what the fuck are you talking about, but
You just said the F word, honey. That's what
sorry. I have
we've
to
been
cut that
so
out
much. Yeah,
later.
but we've been so much better. Like there was so much bad words
Yeah.
in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, because when you upload podcasts to Spotify, if you say the F word, I have to put it in a certain category of explicit,
Oh, really?
you know. Yeah. So I'd rather not say the F word,
But
but I did it anyway.
but I think this is so interesting because I'm still struggling. No, I wouldn't say struggling, but I still think that, I mean, if I was a nun in a monastery, then maybe my
Mhm.
life would be in grace all the time, or what?
Yeah, or maybe not. I don't know. So okay, so Ram Dass,
Yeah.
he had a stroke, right?
Hmm.
And when he talked about his stroke, it was for him
A
like
big
a
grace.
moment of grace
Mm.
because and I've spoken about this, but I went to a retreat with him in 2007 and he was
I think you can actually say a little bit who else were on that retreat, because I don't think
yeah,
that so many people who has.
it
It's
it was
amazing.
incredible. So it was in Maui and I don't know how I ended up there. It was one of those
What year
grace
was that?
moments. 2007. So it was Deepak Chopra in Maui, Deepak Chopra, Ram Dass, and this kirtan singer that has passed since then too, whose name is Sham Das. And he literally he was a Jewish man from, I think, Long Island, kind of like Krishna Das, and he was fully Indian with his like outfit, and he would go off in his kirtan and just like he looked like he was possessed. But he was incredible. But I remember so clearly because Ram Dass would do the morning and Deepak Chopra would do the afternoons. And Ram Dass lectures were because he had a stroke, he spoke so slowly. There was always a space
Between.
between everything he said. That's so you couldn't help but become completely present because we're sitting there in silence between every single word he's saying. And I remember that I was like, oh my God, my hairs are standing straight on my arm because he's so present. And he talks about the stroke being a moment of grace because for him, it enabled him to come into contact with
Mm.
the self in a way that he hadn't been able to before because he could move, He couldn't go anywhere. His body stopped working in a way where he had no other choice besides to go inwards. And he was already on that I mean, he was Ram Dass
Already
already,
let your, yeah. But
but
that's like that's exactly what that's what you explained as well, that the day you took the decision of being sober, and when you started the journey with Sally, when you're reflecting back, you could see that was an energy of grace that supported you there.
yeah. So I guess it depends on how you see it. I mean, most people probably wouldn't see a stroke as a moment of grace. But
No, but I think that if you can cultivate, like if you're on this journey, like we on this awakening journey, or we want to be more present, and we kind of being, curious, or whatever is folding out from moment to moment, I think that all challenges that we're meeting, when we are up in them, it's maybe difficult to see how to create some value from it. But if you can create value when you're standing up to the shit, then I think, yeah, but that's exactly where the grace comes in, I think,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll give an example. Now that I'm thinking about it, we haven't talked about this because it's been so fresh. But so this summer, Sally passed away, which was hard. She hadn't been feeling well, but she passed away, and it was, really tough. And then during the same time throughout the summer, my horse, that is my best friend, also got sick, and then he also passed away. And it was unexpected that he was completely fine when in the beginning of the summer, and then he had something happen to him. But both of these things very much so rattled me.
Mm.
I was really, really sad. So when I came home from Sweden, I think this is what we do when we have I mean, I'd never thought about grief as I thought about grief
Before.
in sort of the month after we came home. Because my dad passed away a few years ago, but he was so sick when he passed that it was almost like a release, like a surrender, that like, okay, you're gonna go now, and you're gonna be better off. But this was the grief that I experienced from the summer, was a grief that I didn't understand before. I think what I did is what I do when I don't feel well is I'm very active. I do lots of stuff so that I don't have to really feel. And David Hawkins talks about that. That's okay when you're feeling like you can't really fully surrender. It's okay to do other things like go to the beach and watch TV and stuff, to just sort of
Eat.
take care of yourself until you're ready
Mm.
to sit down and really surrender into this newfound that Battle Boots was not here anymore. For example, for me, was one night, and I had taken the kids to the mall, which is what they like to do, go to like the makeup store at the mall. I have teenagers, so that's what they like to do. And my husband was making dinner, and we got home, and like everybody was starving and nothing was finished because I don't know, he was like rummaging around the kitchen, and I was like annoyed, because I'm like, Alice is clearly hungry, so I'm like sort of like running around, not running, but like rushing around the kitchen island to get her something while James was finishing up the dinner. And when I did this, I rammed my foot into the kitchen chair so hard that I broke my toe. And it still hurts. I mean, this has been 4 weeks now. And the moment that happened, at least not the moment that happened, but the next night, I understood that this was a moment of grace. That in order for me to not heal from the grief that I felt from Sally passing and Battlewood's passing, but in order to sort of get back to the center, which is what happens why we glide away from the center when we're in pain. Because either we fall back behind the center with depression and lethargy, or we move ahead of it, which is overactive, doing things all the time, sort of moving a little too fast in life. We've talked about this before. So I said, okay, the foot, it's a sign. I can't move around now because I have a broken toe and I can't do all the things that I want to do, sort of like, be active and stuff. So the same night, I decided that, okay, I'm going to do, and I do this from time to time, this 3-week meditation that Sally has in her Meditation for the Love of It book. It's a 3-week program, and you have to meditate about an hour and a half to 3 hours a day.
Have you done it now for 21 days, or are you?
Yeah,
yeah. And how? Tell us about
Well, let me just finish
Yeah.
this thought, and then I'll go. And by doing that, it's not completely. I'm not saying that I'm over the grief or anything like that. That doesn't work like that. But I've come to a place of feeling deeply centered again so that I can experience the sadness and have the moments that I needed to have in order to start letting bad words go. So I guess that's what I'm saying is like, it was a moment, I always say, it's like Hanuman is up there and he's like, okay, come on, let's work. Let's slow down. And that's a moment of grace, in my opinion. Some people could say, oh, what are you talking about? You broke your toe. No. So that's how it works.
Yeah, but I mean, now just relating to what happens 2 minutes before we went on this pod today. When I wanted to go down and just print the sheet that we have as a worksheet, and I hit the head in the corner quite badly, actually. That's and I could see, like, okay, I really need to listen.
Explain more what happened, because
No,
it's
but
too vague.
I go down to pick up this paper that I printed out for this podcast, and going down to the printer, I pass in my son's room, and of course his bed is not made. So I think, oh, I'm going to make the bed. No, it's a voice is telling me, no, don't do the bed, because you go down to just get the paper, and then you're going to go up and prepare for this pod. But then someone says in my head, oh, let's do 2 things at the same time. Hurry up, you can do that. Then it's fixed. It feels nice. So, of course, I go in, I fix it. Oh, how it's nice. I'm thinking, oh, how happy he will be when he get back home, because I know he will. Boom, I'm putting the head up here. And
She hit the head against the bookshelf.
Yeah. And it really started flaming at times, like, oh my God, it's you can.
Oh my God, you have a bruise there.
Yeah, no, but it was quite nasty. So this is going to be big.
Oh, wow.
But anywho,
beautiful.
And then I go and get the paper. I go up and I put this thing on, and I was like, okay, let's. But that's exactly the thing, And I think that you know what the things I'm going through right now. It's what you're saying. It's about to get back into that center. It's getting back into that present moment, and then working from that space. So things because you also said it's an attitude, it's a way of approaching the things coming to me, right?
But I mean, that's so clear that you're moving too fast. And I think I don't see everybody doing this. I mean, I think that you and we do it.
We move fast.
But I don't, like, James is not a move too fast guy, for example. So I wonder what it comes from. It's like this sort of default setting that, like, if we do things, if we're super active and we do things then fast, then we're hiding from what we're feeling. And
it's funny. I wrote down. I wanted to write down slow down, and then I write slow fast. I'm out of it. Then we should flip it fast, slow. That would make more sense. But
oh God, that's great.
But I want to come back to your meditation practice that you decided at this moment of being in grief and losing 2 very important
beings.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, it's hard to explain really what a profound thing it is to do an hour and a half of meditation every day. Sally always said, an hour is what it takes if you're serious about meditation. So I've been doing an hour for years, but then now I do it in the morning too. So I get up and I do my first half hour at like 5:45. And that is the most, for me, I've discovered, the most perfect time to meditate in the day because you haven't done anything. So your thoughts are already slowed down because your brain hasn't started getting active yet. So that half hour feels like a minute because it's like you're just already in that clean slate. And then I do an hour later in the day. But it creates a sense of presence that is almost as if I write about this in meditation blogs, but it's almost as if there's a warm, nurturing blanket that is wrapped around me throughout the day after I do those things. And now actually, I was like, people are like, because I don't, it's funny because people are like, who has time to meditate for an hour and a half? I don't watch TV. And I prioritize meditation in my life. I don't go out to dinner. I mean, this is the number one thing that I do. So that's why I have time for this. It's just like, who does that?
Who does that? Who does an hour
Who
and a
gets up
half?
at 5:45? But I just want to say that so people are like, oh, she's nuts. Like, who has time for that? But that's, you select away the things that you do with your time. Like, what do you do with your time? Yeah, people work, of course. And my days are very busy. So but I prioritize that 1.5 hours somehow throughout my day. And now I
But
actually
for people
decided,
who can't,
come.
for people who can't, because I think this is important, because this is also where it gets frustrated for not just other people, but also for me. Like, where do we find the time? And I, like you say, where it's all about prioritize. And of course, we need to prioritize. Sometimes it's not that easy, but if someone now thinks, okay, I really want to try to do the 21 days meditation, I can't do an hour a day. I mean, we need to be balanced in our lives. So of course, doing 5 minutes or 10 minutes is better than nothing, right?
Yeah, I would say, let's say you don't meditate at all. Then doing it 10 minutes will change your life. So if you do 10 minutes for 21 days, that will change how you feel. Because if you only meditate 0 minutes, then 10 minutes will drastically change the quality of your everyday moments. Remember, I started with 1 minute in the morning, 1 minute in the evening, and that changed everything. So, and I was reading through her Sally's instruction in her book about this 3-week program, and she says exactly that. Like, if you don't have this hour and a half, do what you can. But it's almost like you imagine the quality of a retreat, or the quality of a meditation retreat in your life. So let's say, and she says clearly, like, you throughout this time, you also take away your information input. So for me, that means like no social media, no reading articles on New York Times, because I do that every day because I like to read. No books that have nothing to do with spirituality. So just taking away all the information that is coming into your mind that has nothing to do with meditation. And then you're like, well, what do I do with my time? Besides this 10-minute meditation. And it's interesting to see what happens, because you slow down your mind chatter just by not putting in information into your mind. Because you think about that, like, how many of us may wake up and the first thing we do is pick up our phone and look at Instagram or read the news or You go down, make coffee, and you're like
No,
on your
I,
phone.
I,
So,
I,
and like just shifting away from something like
mm,
that in this 21-day program is a game changer.
mm,
Because then, and she also said this, which is, I feel this is important too. It could be mistaken as boredom.
mm,
Being completely in your center and in present can feel like it could be mistaken. I'm
mm,
kind of bored,
mm,
but it's just reconnecting with your inner self.
mm,
And information and television, all the things, actually, it puts, you get images in your mind that are
mm,
not yours
mm.
from television. And so that also brings you, I mean, I don't get me wrong, I love TV, my
Television.
Swedish
Mm.
Swedish
I know.
crime series that I watch over and over again. But but it's interesting to see that like if you don't have any of that for 3 weeks, you become a clean slate.
Mm.
So it's whatever you can do is what I'm saying. Like I just happen to be one of those people like I like to meditate and I've been doing it for a long time. So it doesn't 1.5 hours is like nothing for me.
It's nothing now. But I would compare that. I mean, now I do both the meditation and the chanting. But when we chant in the Namyo Renge Kyo and the Nichiren Daishonin in Buddhism, it's the same. It's an active meditation. So it's like
Yeah.
you're doing.
Yeah.
And I would say that if I go straight to my mandala and sit down when I've been waking up and I chant for an hour, my whole day is completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different. But I have to say that sometimes with awareness, I was like, okay. And I did an example for this morning. I woke up and I was really tired. And I know I haven't watched the news for a very, very long time. And I heard things that was going on in Sweden. I wanted to hear about them and stuff like that. So I was completely aware that I'm not going to do my meditation right now. I'm going to take my cup of coffee. I'm going to sit with my dog and I'm going to watch the news for 10 minutes. So I think also like the more you're on this journey, you more, when you do things mindfully, you feel also, you do your choice with awareness and not just by the autopilot, because that's what we're doing. We turn on the television, we take the coffee without even knowing, do I need a cup of coffee? And I think also one thing that I use a lot that one of my Buddhist friends said, like, please ask yourself, is this good for me? And is this good for others? Like if this is good, if this is gonna, and if the answer is no, and I still do it, when I still have done that inquiry with myself. So I'm
Mhm.
aware that this is not good, because no
Yeah.
one is perfect, and we're not to be
No.
to be saint, but
Yeah.
it's okay to make mistakes, but just do it with awareness.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
Yeah,
So
this is. I think that the next pod we need to do is meditation. I haven't done pure meditation, and we can do a lot of. You can take us
yeah.
through some meditations, Pernilla.
Yeah, it's like my best friend.
Mm.
Yeah.
I
I actually
thought it
wrote a
was
blog
me.
that's called Meditation, My Best Friend.
I know. I thought it was me.
So, so yeah, I mean, I guess if we bring this all back to what?
I thought it was me.
Yeah, you and meditation, that's all I got. No, but if we bring this all back to grace, I would say that, and I think we've made it clear that things like meditation and chanting are tools for us
Mm.
to recognize grace
Mm.
in our lives.
Mm.
Not necessarily to have more grace come. Like, I don't know, I can't say that, right? But we are able to recognize the things that might have been a gift
Mm.
or a moment that awakened us further into seeing what our lives are. Do you know what I'm saying? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. Definitely, definitely. But I think also what you said in the beginning, that seeing grace as an energy, and energy is not stuck. Energy is moving. So
Mm-hmm.
grace is this organic flow when you're tapping into, to your own rhythm and the rhythm of the universe.
Exactly. Yeah.
And as you said, tools to tap into that rhythm through meditation, through
Mm-hmm.
chanting, through breath work, whatever, yeah,
Yeah.
Pernilla has on her website in Awakening 101 a mandala that she had designed with tools and elements, which I think if you haven't looked into it, please look into it, because it's tools that gives you kind of a path or direction.
Yeah,
how
it's like a
to
roadmap. Yeah.
a roadmap. Yeah. So
Yeah. I call it the awakening process, this mandala, which is what this podcast is called too. It's like, how do we get there?
mm,
What are some ideas? And it's always interesting because it's like, of course, there's no like 1, 2, 3, this is what you have to do. But these are just like, it's always like just like creating awareness around what the tools are.
mm. And that could be fun to just pick one of the tools for you to maybe practice and see what, I mean, it's as you said, there is not just one way to do it. I mean, it's
No,
100
it's not
people,
really.
100 different ways to do things. So, but I think that our goal with all this is to become more awake and kind of enjoying the process of getting more awake.
Yeah. I mean, and then there's sucky moments like depression and COVID. That just are not enjoyable.
No, but I mean, I mean, I know we all have different. But I mean, for me, my kids were home for almost a year from school, and I thought it was lovely to have them home. When I look back at COVID, even it was so hard. My whole business closed down. I had, it was crazy. But when I look, but I could see moments of grace there right now. And I have to say, when I look back of it, I was pretty aware of it also when I was in that journey, knowing that
Yeah,
this,
for sure.
yeah.
For sure. I mean, again, the website Awakening 101 came out, or I created it because of COVID,
So that's,
because I
you
had
should.
time to sit there and think about these things. And because of Zoom, I was able to create it with people that didn't live in my town.
Amazing.
So that's Grace. And I'm just going to end on this, but we did it's called Prana Rising. So, oh my God, what's his name? Girish. So there, sorry,
Yeah.
I don't know why I forgot his name. Uh, but I got an email from him. I mean, it was a newsletter in the very beginning about doing like breath work and these practices every day. And we did that for 60 days at the very beginning of COVID. So every day at 3 o'clock, because he was on the West Coast, a large group of us would gather on Zoom and do pranayama and I couldn't meditate during that time because I was way too stressed, but pranayama really was a game changer. And I used all his practices, and then he helped me do like a 40-day thing with mantra and stuff. That was Grace, because how
Mm,
else would I have gotten an email in my
mm,
inbox from somebody I
mm,
barely knew about?
mm.
And that changed the way that it was in the beginning for me. That kept me going.
This is
Grace.
grace that we can do this together.
Oh, of course it is. And now the sun's out.
Wow.
Yeah. I like doing this at 6 o'clock because again, my brain hasn't started.
I mean, it's a great gift to do it at 6 in the morning before
All
everyone
right.
waking up and getting all that, now you're
Yeah.
gonna get into the rhythm, wake up the kids and go to
Yeah.
Starbucks, having your coffee, and yeah,
Starbucks, the
Starbucks,
best.
the best. Okay, I having my empty cup of
Homemade.
coffee here,
Yeah.
homemade. Oh, Nescoffee, not even
All right.
homemade.
So
Listen, thank you so much, Pernilla. Thank you for everyone listening
we
to
do
us.
like are you gonna do like a recap, like what we talked about, Grace?
Yeah, we talked about grace, and I think that just I mean, I think we collected a whole, how could we say, um, well, all this talk mention different examples. I hope that you will be able to identify how you can recognize grace more easily in your life. And I think that Pernilla kind of said it, we can't recognize anything if we don't slow down. And maybe
Exactly.
that's what we should take with us, to maybe try to live a little bit slower, recognize what's going on. And we didn't touch of connecting grace with gratitude. Maybe we can do that next time, because I also think that gratitude is kind of a quality that brings us into grace. But maybe think of moments that changed your life, and I think what you said also interesting, that we have no control for that grace is really an energy, like, wow, it just happened. The universe is carrying you through these maybe difficult moments, and when you look back and you can see, wow, that was a moment of grace.
You're so good at recaps. That's amazing.
I'm not.
I was like, I don't even remember any of that. That's fantastic.
I know, but you. I mean, I thought I had a bad memory, but I have
I'm
another
like a
winner
goldfish.
here.
Yeah,
You
I'm
are.
a goldfish.
You
It's
are.
awful.
You are. But that's
All right,
okay.
sweetie.
I love you. Don't forget.
Love you. See
I'm
you
your
later.
best friend. He loves you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening to us. Bye bye.
Bye.